It's great to have Jim here. Jim, started so many different companies, a couple of which, one of which is Square, which became Block, and you helped usher in something that's been so impactful to small businesses throughout the world, millions of them, through the card reader there, enabling you to take advantage of your phone and process credit cards, and it helped people really take advantage of that system. And now with Invisibly, I think it's really interesting how you're building something that is helping people take advantage of the data that they have, and not just the corporations get the benefit from it, the people do too. And that's a really interesting mission to be behind. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Thank you, Ben. It's going to be fun.
How did your passion for business and eventually what became technology begin?
I don't have a passion for technology. Tech is a tool. It's this thing that I'll use to solve problems, but it's not something. I studied computer science. I'm an engineer by training. I'm very good at math. I can build things, but that's not what I get excited about. What I get excited about is fixing stuff that I think is wrong. And technology is a good tool because it keeps getting cheaper and more powerful. So it's a good way to solve problems that were previously unsolvable, but it's not this thing that I just live for. And the latest release, I don't care, but I got my start building products and companies. And the big one for me was when I was working as a glass artist and making, pretty vases and bowls, and I tried to sell one, and some lady only had an American Express card and couldn't pay me because I couldn't take an American Express card, and I lost that sale. And that's what led to Square, because I had already agreed. Jack Dorsey asked me to start a company with him, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, what do you want to do? And so we were figuring out what we wanted to do while I lost this sale. And that was the thing that gave me the idea to say, oh, I would like to be able to turn, my phone into a credit card machine. So the idea was to, build something that I wanted, that I needed as a small business person. But it wasn't a love of tech. It was just this problem that I had. And the interesting thing was, I didn't know if anyone else had that problem because, I was pretty weird. There aren't a lot of glass artists. There aren't a lot of people who make money, without getting a paycheck somewhere. So I didn't know if it was going to be a one-off or if we'd had a success on our hands. So that was our, that was the beginning of Square, but it was problem focused, not tech focused.
So how did you actually go and make this card reader? How did you actually create it?
So the card reader came out of a disagreement that Jack and I had on the first day of Square. Because we knew we wanted to be able to process credit cards, and Jack thought that having hardware was a terrible idea because it, meant supply chains and, all sorts of overhead. But the credit cards at the time only had magstripes on them. And well, actually, they didn't only have magstripes, but if you read the magstripe, it was considered a more secure transaction. And as a result of that, the credit card companies would give you a discount if you read the magstripe. So I wanted to read the magstripe and get a cheaper rate. Jack thought we should just use the camera and take a picture of the card. But to my mind, that didn't make any sense because taking a photo of the card didn't prove that you actually had the card. It just proved that you had a photo of the card. So for instance, I can take a photo of a card and send it, across the country. That doesn't mean the credit card is across the country. It means that there's this photo that I transmitted. So, we had this big argument, and he was like, we need to do OCR. And I was like, there's no way you're going to get that working. I'm going to build a mag stripe reader. And he's like, that's too involved. So I flew back to St. Louis and built the mag stripe reader and the decode within 10 days. So way before he could get the OCR working, I got a magstripe reader working. And so at that point, Square just became a hardware company.
And how did you go and start to pitch this to people and get scale for the company?
So we started in the middle of a recession. So it wasn't hard getting people to join us because there weren't a lot of people, employing. So it was a good time to be a boss and hire. But it was it was very interesting because we didn't have a product that existed. So, the thing about Square and some of these other companies that I profile in the innovation stack is that none of them had precedence. So there was no company that we were copying when we built Square, which meant that when we were trying to hire people and we were trying to explain to them what we were doing, it was very difficult because we couldn't say, oh, well, we're doing this. We're building another Tesla, or we're building, PayPal, or we couldn't. There was no analogy. So as a result, the only people we could get to work with us were people who also felt like the problem of small merchants not having access to the same tools that big merchants did was one that they cared about. But we couldn't point to a solution or any sort of structure that they would be joining. So it was a pretty ragtag and weird group. That group was super creative. And I'm happy to say that, 15 years later now, some of that original group is getting back together, and we are building some new products because it turns out that creativity is something that's pretty rare in individuals. And I'm happy to see, I think there are 5 of us back now from the original team.
That's nice to hear. So how did you guys create this design? Because the design was so iconic. It was, inducted in the Museum of Modern Art, the MoMA. How did you come up with this unique design?
Well, originally the company was called Squirrel. So when we were planning to be called Squirrel, the original card reader was supposed to be an acorn. So if you actually tear apart the original card reader, you will see that I crammed all the components into this like acorn outline. That was the original design. We then changed it to Square because Squirrel was taken, but we could get the name Square. But then I'd already designed the guts of the thing, so I had this very, very tiny footprint. And Square, seemed to logically want to be a square object, so it had to be a square object. I tested a couple of designs, one that wasn't square that worked a lot better than the one that was square, but we shipped the one that was because it just looked cool. And, the other thing that was really magical about that original design was that it was a little difficult to use. And because it was difficult to use, people got more involved with it. They cared more about it. So they would pay attention. And once they got the skill, I mean, it didn't take that much skill to use it well, but it was a little bit difficult. And once they got that skill, they would then show off to their friends. So this allowed us to get a ton of free advertising by people just, sort of wanting to show off their new cool thing to their buddies.
Oh, interesting. So the design was not just about how it was made; it was just the functionality of it too help lend to its success.
Yeah, I mean, design is a combination of beauty and function, but in the case of the Square reader, what was interesting was the lack of function. In other words, I built 2 readers, one that worked perfectly and was very easy to use but wasn't beautiful, and one that was small and beautiful but not easy to use. And we only shipped the one that was beautiful because it was more compelling, it was more engaging. And we tested them both. Now, I can tell you that when we tested them together, people preferred the one that worked perfectly because it worked easier. But when I tested them separately, the reaction I got from the small Square unit was just overwhelming. People were amazed. They were like, let me see that. Show me that again. What was that? They were engaged. It kind of woke them up. Whereas the big unit was not interesting. It was just this another big credit card reader, which you've seen before. This small device that was magical. That was it. So it was the fact that it didn't work so well, not just that it was a beautiful piece of plastic.
And how, can you just talk a little bit about like the Amazon competition and how that wound up benefiting you guys?
We didn't think it was a benefit at the time. Amazon, when we were a 3-year-old startup, decided they wanted to take our whole market. And when Amazon does that, Jeff Bezos doesn't show up with a giant checkbook, like some, program that you see in Hollywood. This is They just steal your market. So what Amazon does is they copy your product, they undercut your price, and then they add the Amazon brand name. And then you just die. Like that's like any company that Amazon does that to, at least in 2014 when Amazon did it to us, any company they had tried that strategy with had died. Like, so Amazon had 100% kill ratio, and they were going to kill us the same way. And we tried to fight them, but there was really nothing we could do that was different than what we were already doing. So we just ignored them. And miraculously enough, that worked. So ignoring Amazon beat Amazon. We found out a year later that they quit the business. And when they quit the business, they actually gave us all their old customers, which was pretty cool, but it was a tough way to get another couple 100,000 customers. The interesting thing to me was, why did it happen? Because I had studied Amazon, and I knew their history, and I knew the history of other companies that competed with Amazon, and they either ended up getting acquired or just died. So why was Square different? And the answer turned out to be a pretty interesting answer, which I wrote a book about called The Innovation Stack. But it's a phenomenon that has happened throughout time, where these companies who start truly different businesses based on a different set of principles, basically end up with these things that are uncopyable and unkillable. So it typically happens at the beginning of a market. So when I would put Tesla in this category. Everyone thinks, oh, Tesla's a car company. No. Tesla's an electric car company. What they do, they're more of a battery company than a car company. They're more of a software company than a car company. They're more of a tech company than a car company. They have this different DNA, which means when they compete with the car companies, at least in their world, they're just uncopyable. And I don't know if you've driven, other cars. I have an electric BMW that I got really cheap, and I couldn't resist the deal. But it's garbage. Like, the engineers at BMW are good engineers, but they built a crappy electric car. My BMW has a start button. Why the hell do you need a start button? Like, it's an electric car, you don't need it. It has a gas cap. I mean, seriously, do they think like the electrons are going to spill outside the vehicle? They're bright people, but they can't think about anything but a gas car. We didn't copy anything, and that's how we survived Amazon.
You had a focus there on data and the importance of consumers taking advantage of data. Why was that something that you really cared so much about to want to build a company around?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so Invisibly, again, this was personal. Like, I was painfully aware of every time I would get something for free online, for free. Well, I was really the product, and what was paying for that product was somebody taking my attention and doing something with it that I wasn't cool with. And then I started looking into the market for that attention. I realized that my eyeballs were super cheap to me. Like, the value of the thing that I was receiving was really cheap, but they were very valuable to others. And I was like, wait a second, I want to be on the other side of this trade. Instead of getting the penny, I want to get the dollar. So what Invisibly basically does is it gives you the dollar. Well, not the full dollar. We give you 85 cents of it, because we take a cut. About 15% goes to us. But the basic idea with Invisibly is that we allow you to sell your attention on your terms. So we take your attention. We, you can give it to us in the terms of, in the form of surveys, in the form of ads. You can, basically interact in ways that you get paid to interact. And it's in some cases a literal payment. We'll give you gift cards, or pretty much whatever you want, and it's real dollars. But basically, what it Invisibly does, it allows you to make the trade on your terms. So you can sell us your attention. We will turn around and be your agent and sell it out, and then pay you. The other thing that it does is it gives you, sort of an insight into, how you fit in the ecosystem online.
How does it work? Like, how do you like take advantage of data for these consumers and really get, and how does that whole system work?
So it's really interesting because the way it works is the first thing you do is you decide what's fair and what isn't for you. So for instance, one of the things you can do with Invisibly that creeps a lot of people out is you can share your banking data. You can give us a login to your bank account. Now we can't touch the money, but we can actually see what you spent your money on. That data is actually fairly valuable, and we will pay you for that. Now some people go, well, I'd never do that. And it turns out if you're over 30, you're probably in the I'd never do that category. If you're under 30, you would probably happily trade that data. So it's sort of an interesting proxy for age. But there are other things. You can watch ads. There's a lot of surveys that you can take that are paid. There are also a lot of surveys that you take just for fun, where you can just sort of voice your opinion and see how it affects and stacks up with other people's opinions. So, but the key part of Invisibly is that it's just whatever you're comfortable with. So we let you individually sort of set the parameters, and then based on that we trade. So this is the equivalent of of an actor having an agent. Okay, you're an actor, you have an agent, and the agent says, well, will you do horror movies? And you say, no, I'm only going to do comedies. And you say, but nothing with Adam Sandler, so like that's your standard. You'll do a comedy movie, but you're absolutely not going to get into business with Adam Sandler or whatever. Like you just tell us what scripts you want to read, and we try to get you those scripts.
What's kind of your long-term vision right now? Because big tech is making a lot of money from data. Like, do you see this being like the version that, hey, people can be in control of this, and this is gonna be rival the scale of what big tech does with data? Like, what do you want to accomplish with Invisibly?
Well, what I'd like to do, I mean, I've got big dreams, is I'd like people to start being in control of their data. So here's the thing. If you could take away the margins that Facebook and TikTok and the big platforms make on you, you would have access to way better stuff because they're getting very, very rich on your data. So ultimately, my hope is that more people join Invisibly and start getting basically more value. So look, Invisibly is taking a cut, but our cut is like 15%. If you look at what Facebook and the platforms take, it's like over 90%. So sometimes way more than that. So if you actually wanted to have a system where people were in control, Invisibly is a shot at that. Now, it may not work, okay? Invisibly may not scale to the point where it becomes a challenger to TikTok or Facebook or some other platform. But for the people who use it, it's still valuable. And that's sort of the key. Like we had to figure out a way to, even in the current ecosystem, get enough, money for your attention so that we could give you cool stuff. So we can do that right now. It's cool. But if it scales, like if it goes viral and really grows, then it's massive because it reverses the control of the system. Right now, and this is why, you see all these congressmen getting all pissed off about, data security and all this stuff. Like none of that would happen if you were in control. Like if Ben Weiss was in control of Ben Weiss, then you would make those decisions. And the only thing we would have to do is listen to you. And if you said, I don't care, great, we'll do everything. And if you said, no, this is off limits and these are the only things that I'll sell, then we respect that. And so I think the only thing that is a problem with this is that people have to at some point think about the process. Like they have to at some point, swallow the blue pill and wake up and realize how the game is played. Which is why we call the company Invisibly, because we try to make all the rest of it invisible. Because there's a bunch of noise, there's a bunch of negotiation, there's a bunch of money flying here and there and percentages and all this stuff. And you shouldn't have to worry about that. Like we'll explain it to you if you care. But really what we want to do is just put you in charge and then fade into the background and then just let you get whatever you want. So if you want premium news, great. If you want gift cards from Starbucks, have at it. Like, and tell us how you want to generate money. Like if you want to watch ads, great. If you want to take surveys, even cooler. If you want to, just share your financial data, like actually that's actually the coolest thing in the world. If you share your financial data, you give us one password, one time, and we pay you forever. Because every day we're going to suck down the data. We're going to go try to sell it. Now, we may make a couple cents today, you may make 10 cents tomorrow. You know, it's not going to be, you don't get to quit your day job, right? But it's real money. I mean, and it takes 10 seconds and then it's paid forever. You know, so yeah, have some fun with it. Unless you're over 30, in which case probably don't have the guts.
Jim, it seems like in this space that there's like one group of people that's like, oh, these companies should like not give up. They should not be taking your data into account and giving it away. But like the way that people have been kind of combating that is like, oh, we should have more restrictive policies and legislation and this and that. And they can't be able to take your data. But the other way is like, hey, which is what you're doing is like, hey, we're going to go be in charge. You can be in charge of this as somebody that's you can take advantage of this yourself. You can monetize it and you can have kind of the power over that. Like, do you see like your solution also, yes, it will make certain people money, but do you see it like swinging the pendulum? And like this is now a way that anybody, like you're in charge of your own data, and now you get to choose to monetize it instead of just saying you can't monetize any data at all. Like, do you kind of see it changing that discussion?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sort of a big believer in the democratic process that, individuals should generally be in charge of their own destiny and have a collective voice. That said, online we live in these dictatorships where we are all sort of at the mercy of these platforms who do not owe us anything. Read the terms of service. They don't owe you anything. So Invisibly has sort of two goals. One is a personal one, just for the individual, for the person who comes to Invisibly. We're going to give you personally more control. And you say, well, what's control? And the answer is, well, you don't know because you've never had it. Like in the history of the internet, you've never had a system where you get to decide what information you trade and what you don't. Because the business model has always been, I'm going to bait you with free stuff, or, we call it free. And then I'm going to sell your data and your attention in ways that are beneficial for the platform, not for you. Okay, so that's it's a different game to play. So I want people to come and start playing that game. I want people to decide, what information they're going to share and what they're not going to share. I want them to see how much money it makes or doesn't make. I want them to see how valuable their eyeballs are. And then we give them rewards. We give them, Starbucks cards. We give them frequent flyer miles on Southwest Airlines. We give them, Nike shoes. Like there are all sorts of cool things you can earn, but you're not really, these are not free. You're earning them. It's just you're earning them with your attention. And there are a bunch of cool ways to do that. My absolute favorite is to share banking information, because you do that once and it pays you a dividend forever. So it's like 90 seconds of work, and then you get this income stream that just never stops. Now, it's not hundreds of dollars, but it's, dollars. It just comes on. But you're sharing your data, right? That's valuable. So anyway, that's a game that I want individuals to play. The bigger hope is if Invisibly grows, if we become somewhat of a force so that we have some market force, then we can start doing some very powerful things. Because then we will be able to negotiate on behalf of our clients, which will be individuals, better deals from the platform. So right now we're just buying and selling on these ad exchanges. Okay, so your eyeballs are not worth that much. They're worth something, but they're not worth that much. If we can get to the point where we actually have a group that we represent, then we can start doing content deals. We can do access deals. We can do discounts. We can do all sorts of cool stuff. And I'm hoping we get there. But if we don't, it's still fun to play with. So it's beneficial now as an individual. It's kind of fun. The other thing that's cool about Invisibly is that when you share your data, we are actually able to give you insights about how you stack up with others. And this is kind of interesting because, a lot of times we think we're comparing ourselves to our peers. We're actually not. We're comparing ourselves to this idealized random thing that some marketer has designed to make me feel bad about what I am, so that I have to spend money on what he's selling. So if you actually strip out all that crap, the information is really interesting. And so Invisibly, like it's an invisible agent. You have your agent, and your agent's going to sell you and it's going to bring you the money, or give you the entertainment, or what you tell us how to make the trade. So that's what we're going to be doing, and it should be a lot of fun.
Definitely sounds exciting. I think it can be beneficial to a lot of people, especially to have that control over their data and actually be able to make something of it, instead of just other companies doing that. So I'm excited to see what you'll do, Jim. I appreciate you
Thanks,
coming
Ben.
on.
All right.